All right, I call to order this regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Public Works this Tuesday, March 14th of 2023. First up, we have messages from board members. Do we have any messages from the board this evening? No. Okay, no messages from the board. Next up is petitions and remonstrances. This is an opportunity to make a public comment about something that is not on the agenda this evening. So if you have a public comment to make about something not on the agenda, now is the opportunity to do so. If you'd like to make a comment on Zoom, you can use the raised hand function or the chat function. If you'd like to make a comment here in the room, you can approach the podium. Again, this is public comment for things not on the agenda.
I have a raised hand from Nathan. Nathan, I've asked you to unmute, and you may proceed.
Hold on.
I need a booty so fat it make me angry when I look at it, and I want to fight you. I mean, I'm a fight.
We'll go. Move on. We need order in the comments. All right. Do you see anything else, April? All right. Next up on the agenda is Title VI enforcement, abatement at 530 South Washington.
Good evening, Chris Wheeler with City Legal, and this is Rob Counsel with Housing and Neighborhood Development. The item here is for a request for an order to abate the property at 530 South Washington. And I'd like to have Mr. Counsel ask or answer a few questions, if I may. Mr. Counsel, you're the enforcement officer with Housing and Neighborhood Development and responsible for the neighborhood that encompasses 530 South Washington.
That is correct.
And you issued 4 notices of violation against this property, is that right?
That is correct.
And those notices of violation were to a Joseph Davis as the owner of that property?
Yes, sir.
How did you serve those notices of violation to Mr. Davis?
They were delivered in person.
Of those notices of violation, they were for items both regarding garbage, yard waste recyclables, and also overgrowth, correct?
That is correct.
To your knowledge, were the overgrowth issues complied?
They were complied.
All right. And you presented some photographs for the packet for today's meeting, is that right?
Yes, sir.
All right. You took those photographs?
Yes, sir, last week.
All right. To your knowledge, today as we speak, have the issues regarding garbage, yard waste, and recyclables been complied?
No.
And represented by the photographs, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. So we're asking for an abatement to request, and a request for abatement. Is that right?
That's correct, a
Okay.
continuous abatement.
Yeah. So how did you serve the request for abatement on Mr. Davis?
It was served via certified mail and first class mail.
Very good. And you already said we are asking for a continuous abatement. Is that right?
That's correct, sir.
All right. No further questions, but I'd be happy to answer questions of the board if they have any concerning abatement.
Questions from the board?
Can you tell me when the notice of abatement was served?
The notice of abatement was served on I don't know the date that he received it, but it went out from the packet. That might show the date. I don't know if it's on the packet. It was last week at some point.
Okay, thank you.
And I didn't hear very clearly. Could you just remind us when the photographs that we have in the packet were taken, please?
Those were from last week, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Has the property been inspected this week at all?
I have not had the opportunity to go out there this week.
And if the abatement is approved, on or about what date would that abatement take place?
That depends on whether Hand decides to hire a contractor to do the work or if Hand does it in-house.
Okay.
Would determine when they're going to actually go out and do the abatement.
Okay, I was just curious for the sake
Recording
of the...
in progress.
I was just curious for the sake of the property owner to be aware of the time remaining before abatement takes place? Do you have an anticipated window?
The abatement order is in effect for a period of 12 months. We would intend to be out there. Again, I haven't talked with the director of hand, but I would expect that he would want to see it done in a relatively short term, so within the month or even within a couple of weeks.
Okay.
If it's being issued by a contractor, if it's being done in-house, it could be done within probably a week or two.
Okay, thank you.
Is it common practice to alert the homeowner before the abatement is about to take place, given a window of a few days even in preparation, or is there no?
Notice as to when it's going to occur?
Correct.
I know that after this, if this board would approve the request and issue the order for abatement, a notice does go out to the homeowner, the property owner, with regards to the board's decision and the fact that an abatement is going to occur. As far as the date that it's going to occur, I don't know that, because we don't know yet whether there's going to be a contractor involved. The date, it becomes difficult to know. I don't recall what Mr. Wason does typically with regards to a heads up to the property owner, but I think he does provide one. I just don't recall how that works. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Is the property owner here, and would you like to make comments? Would you like to make a comment? And if you'll just state your name for the record.
Yes, my name is Joseph Davis. Thank you. Please forgive my appearance. I've been working on my property. Probably put in over, I'd say, 110 hours in the last 10 days since I received notice. I received notice of the request for abatement on Friday, not a few days ago Friday, but before, about 10 days ago. So I want to point out just a couple of things. Repeatedly, I've heard over and over again that Rob Council has issued 4 notices of violation. He hasn't. He's only submitted 3 notices of violation. I included all 3 of those: a warning, a notice of violation for overgrowth and for garbage, and then a second notice of violation for garbage, and that's all I received. And I didn't receive any certified mail from hand as far as this request for abatement. I did receive first class, and that's what came on Friday. So first class postage. And no one has been out there to inspect this week. I took a bunch of images before I came here this evening, but it was just after 5. I apologize, and so I wasn't able to upload those. But the place is looking great. I mean, it's looking fantastic. It's amazing. And I have been consolidating my building materials, placing them on my trailer and my truck. There's still a few boards that need to go up on my vehicles. So, and I've decided, I salvaged these, this 100-year-old garage last year that was going to be demolished. So I salvaged it down the street, 1107, I think, South Lincoln. And when I salvaged it, I panelized it. I sort of made sections out of it, but the sections are really huge, and they are not possible to go in to my basement door. But what I've decided to do is to just disassemble them and just basically take them apart and take all the boards off. And then once those boards are are processed, I can put them up on my trailer and tarp them over, and they'll be protected. So I am, as always, most willing to work with hand or planning and transportation to make this happen, as far as reaching compliance, whatever compliance is deemed to be. And I would say that it's 90% there right now. What I need is probably 2 weeks to process those panels and to continue to sort of tighten up some things. But whatever images you've seen from earlier, those are history. And let's see. Yeah, do you have any questions that you would like to ask me?
Are there any questions from the board? No. All right, seeing none. We don't have any questions, but thank you.
Okay. I know that you received the packet of information that sort of the tour, and in there I wanted to point out that as well that in that packet you might have seen I have a building permit, solar permit. I don't know if you noticed that. I have a certificate of zoning compliance for my proposed structure in the back. And you know, with good fortune, by the end of this year, I'll have that structure up and be able to, you know, have one more place to store items of any sort. But definitely, you want to come over for a cookout, you're all welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments.
Sure.
All right, we now have the opportunity for public comment on this item, which is the abatement at 530 South Washington. If we have anyone who would like to make a public comment, you can use the raised hand function on Zoom, or you can approach the podium if you're in person. This evening, we're going to have 3 minutes for public comment. Hello, if you'll just state your name for the record.
My name is Renata Raper. I am a property owner in the area. I have several rental houses within 2 blocks, one being right next door at 528 South Washington Street. We purchased the property there several years ago, and the property caught fire. The house, as I've been told, has one room that is partially habitable. The structure that he's referring to that's already existing on the property is not in good condition. The building is tarped. The premises is unkept. It's unsafe. It's an eyesore. As a landlord in the area, I have lost tenant renewals and new leases due to the conditions of the house next door. It's really a shame. I have talked to Joe on several occasions. He comes in here today, soft-spoken and kind and welcoming us to a barbecue. And I'm just frustrated because it has been years and years of dealing with this nonsense, of dealing with a property owner that will not take pride and clean up this mess. He says he's been working 110 hours the last 10 days. I personally was at the property next door last Monday and Tuesday. I didn't see one thing moved. So he has obviously been very busy since those days. But the backyard is full. There's more issues than we're addressing tonight. What the issues you guys are addressing tonight is just the trash and the recyclables that he's calling construction materials. There are so many more issues, and that's not your area, and I understand that, but we have issues of abandoned vehicles on the street that don't run. One doesn't even have an engine in it, that are taking up parking places. Last summer, he was using places along the street for storage. He had chairs and tables stacked out there. His backyard has abandoned vehicles in it. And now I'm just now hearing that we're applying for another building permit for another building to add to this problem. I can't believe we didn't have to fix the current building the way it is. I mean, there's just so many issues. And I really hope that you'll take the city's request at hand, because he has, as he acknowledged tonight, he has been notified. This is not a new thing. And I know the gentleman that's here tonight that testified, he's not the first hand inspector that I've heard personally say, we keep giving him tickets, he keeps appealing, or he keeps doing this or that. It's time we do something. And Hand has stepped up, and they're being a leader here. Let's support them and making this block more presentable, making this safer looking. I mean, it's just so frustrating, I guess, as a landowner, especially a neighbor, that I have to deal with this. I had my property, the corner, surveyed a few weeks ago, and his stuff, I mean, he's got rubbish piled high over on me. I mean, it's never ending, and I can't get him to clean up. And I've asked him, and I've begged him, and I've said, please, Joe, get the place cleaned up. So he has been notified. Does he need some time? I don't think we should march in there tomorrow and clean his place up, although that would be nice. No, he does need to be notified. But they've done that. They have taken every legal warning or whatever they have to do to make sure that they're in compliance. And for him to get busy at the last minute and say, oh, my pictures were after 5 o'clock, sorry, I didn't bring them. I'm sorry, but you've been notified more than just a few days ago. He has known. I've taken pictures, the county's taken pictures, the city's taken pictures, the police have taken pictures. And we always end up right back where we are. If I can get him to move those vehicles, they're right back in a couple days. It's just a game. It's just a game. And it's time that the games be over. It's time to move forward, and let's clean up our community and make something that we're all proud in. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any public comments on Zoom?
I see no raised hands or chat. We do have several people on Zoom, so I just want to go over.
That's fine. Yeah, we can take a minute to do that. All right. If we have no other public comments,
Can I still ask Mr. Davis a question?
Sure, yeah.
Hi. The two photos that we have, it looks like two different areas of your property. One, I believe, is the front, where it looks like almost a wall of stones. Which of these two sections have you been working on? I ask because in the area that I believe is the front of your property, it looks like there's a discarded cereal box, there is a CD, a pile of hats. You spoke about cleaning building materials.
May I see that image?
April, is there a way to pull it up on the screen?
Give me just a moment and I'll share it.
It's on page 10 of the PDF.
Okay.
Thank you.
The cereal box might have been on that bench seating area. I put out canned goods and other food items that are non-perishable that I get at the First United Methodist Church.
Are you able to zoom in at all? I don't know.
I'm not sure if it will let me. Okay. Oh, there it goes.
It looks like just behind the CD, there's overturn what may be a cereal box and a pile of cats to the right beyond that.
Oh, well, I think those hats that you're referring to were a cowboy hat and, yeah, right there, a construction hat. Those are inside right now. Many of those items on the front porch are indoors. Yeah, that's old. That's an old photograph.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, forgive me, I lost my train of thought, but I just want to say that, again, if I've been requesting over and over again to work with hand. Unfortunately, the no compliance, whenever the last communication I had with Rob Council was an email message, not an email, a voicemail that I left with him, which he did not return. Russell White was an amazing compliance officer. He would come by, he would help the property owners figure out what it was that the city wanted them to do to get their properties within compliance. He would come back every so often and say, oh, now you do this, now you do that. That's been the exact opposite of my experience through this process with hand, is that no one is willing to work with me. No one is willing to come through and do a walkthrough of the property and say, hey, that looks great. You're doing an amazing job there. How about tighten this up? Oh, did you know that I'm a gardener too? I really like how you've got your, potting area all set up. That's a type of interaction that I'm used to having with city officials. And unfortunately, that's just really not what has been happening. It's been more of a kind of like that image up there that you see. I see an image. Well, where's Waldo? You can find a zillion little things in there that might be questionable, interesting. But unless somebody can point and say, hey, this item right there, that specific item, that's what's been so frustrating, not being able to have that partner with the city to say this specific thing. So again, I'm just trying to bring it all inside, trying to get it all up on my trailer, trying to get everything under a tarp, and I think I'll need probably another 2 weeks, and it'll be good to go if I'd welcome someone from hand to come out and take a look and advise me. I mean, that would have been wonderful all along the course, but certainly at this point, I would welcome it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Do we have a motion on this item?
I move that we approve the City of Bloomington's order of abatement for the NOV for the address of 530 South Washington.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I will do a roll call vote. Caron?
Aye.
Lloyd?
Aye.
Cox-Deckard? Aye. Motion passes. Next up is the consent agenda. Under the consent agenda is the approval of minutes for February 28th of 2023. Resolution 2023-12, request from Six Ways Market for a pop-up supermarket, and approval of payroll. Do we have any items that need to be removed from the consent agenda this evening? Do we have any public comments on anything within the consent agenda this evening? If you're on Zoom, again, you can use the chat function or the raised hand function. If you're here in person, you can approach the podium.
No comment on Zoom.
All right, seeing none, is there a motion?
I move that we approve the consent agenda for tonight's meeting of March 14th, 2023.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I'll do a roll call vote. Caron?
Aye.
Lloyd?
Aye.
Cox-Deckard? Aye. Motion passes. Next up is new business. First item under new business is Resolution 2023-11, request from Turning Point USA at Indiana University to paint an All Lives Matter street mural.
Thank you, board members. This is Michael Rooker. I'm the city attorney for the city. Can you hear me okay?
Thank you.
Great. Turning Point USA has proposed to paint, quote, an approximately 12-foot by 120-foot All Lives Matter street mural on East Kirkwood in front of the Von Lee Building and Indiana University parking lot, end quote. Turning Point is proposing to paint the mural on April 7th and April 8th of this year. Over the last couple of months, Turning Point and city staff have worked through Turning Point's application to address multiple issues with the application. However, because Turning Point's application is inconsistent with the city's policy and procedures on private art installations within the public right-of-way, staff is recommending that the board deny Turning Point's special event application. As the board may recall, late last year, the board adopted the policy and procedures on private art in the public right-of-way. Turning Point's application is inconsistent with the policy because the application is for, number one, an art installation. Number two, it's proposed by a private actor. Number three, it includes words. Number four, it is proposed to be installed in the public's right-of-way. And number five, it is expected to remain in the right-of-way for more than 7 days. Because the proposal meets all of these elements, it is not consistent with the policy. Therefore, staff is recommending that the board deny the special event application. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from the board to Mr. Rooker?
No.
All right. Do we have the applicant? And does the applicant want to make a comment?
The applicant is on Zoom. I will ask him to unmute if he has any comments.
Thank you. As we've worked with the city for a number of months to address any issues with our application, the only demand that we cannot comply with is to remove the speech elements from our application. That
Record.
Sorry, Kyle Reynolds, president of Turning Point USA at IU.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. We feel that removing the speech elements would defeat the purpose of the mural. This is a mural we've been working with the city to paint for nearly 2 years now. The policy that it is inconsistent with was adapted only after we proposed our mural. It was adapted after a federal judge granted us a preliminary injunction when the mural was first denied. And we feel that as the city has allowed private organizations to participate in this, participate in producing public murals with speech in the past and have participated in this public forum, we see no reason why our right to do so should be denied. And if, unfortunately, this board votes down our application, we won't have a choice but to, again, bring this issue before federal court.
Thank you. All right, we will now open this for public comment. If we have those who would like to make public comment on Zoom, if you are able to use the raised hand function, that will indicate to us that you're interested in making a public comment. You can also use the chat function if the raised hand function is not working for you, or if you prefer to write your comment in the chat. And do we have people wanting to make public comment here in person? Okay, can I just see a show of hands just so we can track? Okay, thank you.
I do have raised hands on Zoom.
Okay, what we're going to do first is take comment here in person. Again, we're going to be limiting public comment to 3 minutes. If you are here in person, would like to make a public comment, please approach the podium. I can time here. And if you'll state your name, please.
Hi, my name is Bob Costello. I'm here as the president of Kirkwood Community Association. I'm speaking on behalf of all of our members. We're asking that you vote this request down. We're also asking that in the future you vote all requests down that want to put murals on public right-of-ways, especially Kirkwood. I think the petitioner can find plenty of private buildings that would be more than willing to let them put this as a mural on the side of the building if that's what they so wish. But I think there are other alternatives, and I would appreciate you voting this down. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next comment here in person.
Hi, my name is Heidi Darling. I'm a resident here in Bloomington. The Oxford Dictionary defines euphemism as an indirect word or phrase that people often use to refer to something embarrassing or unpleasant, sometimes to make it seem more acceptable than it really is. When someone dies, they may say they passed. When someone has been fired, they may say they've left to pursue other interests. A euphemism to deny existence of racial injustice is all lives matter. Of course, all lives matter, but that's not the point. The phrase was derived in direct opposition to Black Lives Matter in order to diminish the racial injustice that remains in our society and around the world. The point is that Black lives matter too. We must acknowledge that racial, social, and religious injustices exist, and we must all put in the work to prevent all injustice so that truth, equality, and freedom may be shared by all people. Allowing an All Lives Matter mural to be printed on public property would be an insult and would constitute oppression to any minority population. That is to say, any population who isn't white, straight, or Christian. We cannot stand behind euphemisms to avoid dealing with the ugly truths that exist in our society. We cannot allow a mural of All Lives Matter to be printed anywhere on public property. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, public comment here in person.
Hi, Sue Aquila. I received notice as an adjacent property owner to the mural location. I own Bloomington Bagel Company and the apartment building Dunn Park. I'm here as a business owner as well. We've worked very hard with City Council and the city to close Kirkwood in the summers to be a welcoming place for the community. We're having festivals downtown. We have outdoor seating. It is neither appropriate nor desired to have any kind of mural like this in our downtown. It is also adjacent to People's Park, which has a history, as we know. There's a sign, First Black Grocery in the community. It seems an insult to that park. Furthermore, as the parent of a child of color, I don't want anyone coming from campus or coming to our downtown to see something that is meant, which is veiled racism. We don't need that in this community. We are working hard to show our support for everyone in this community. So I hope you will turn down this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comments here in person? All right, April, if you can bring up the first public comment on Zoom.
I am going to ask Ruth to unmute, and I'm going to try to do this in order of which the hands came up.
Hello, my name is Ruth Eit. I am here to urge the Board of Public Works to deny Turning Point USA at IU's request to paint an All Lives Matter mural on Kirkwood Avenue. As noted in the staff report, this proposed installation is inconsistent with the City of Bloomington policy on private art and public right-of-way. I would also like to take this opportunity to say that words need to be considered in context. The words "all lives matter" have been used to shut down important conversations about our country's history of harm to Black people. In our own city, Black people were restricted from owning or leasing many prime properties as recently as 75 years ago. Black people were barred from IU housing until 1947, and elementary education remained segregated until 1951. Let's talk about this part of our history. Let's acknowledge the opportunities unavailable to Black people because of a characteristic beyond their control. Let's interrupt the story about hard work and an even playing field. The playing field has never been even. Our city continues to witness racial disparities in the areas of home ownership, education, criminal justice, health, income, and generational wealth. Until race is not a predictor of outcome in these areas, the playing field is not even and work remains. Context matters, Black lives matter. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Ellen. And Ellen, I will ask you to unmute.
I'm Ellen Mills. I'm a resident in Bloomington. I'm here to speak out against painting All Lives Matter in a public street, and especially a public street between IU and the downtown and across from People's Park. I support the city for its new ordinance. The text is not allowed, and I ask the city to reject this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up we have Miss Reese, and I apologize if I mispronounce your name. I've asked you to unmute and you can make your comment.
No worries, thank you. My name is Maquiba Reese. And I know that the Board of Public Works will make a decision tonight about the proposal before you. And I am not here to influence that decision. I actually have a bigger, more important issue to highlight. When I say Black Lives Matter, I mean all Black lives matter, not just some, but all. If the All Lives Matter statement were actually true, then the racial tension of America wouldn't be so polarized, and the history of enslavement of Africans, mass genocide of Jews, and Native peoples in the violation of religious freedom would not have happened. But we are polarized, and discrimination is still prevalent today. And the systems that allow all that harm to happen still exist today in Bloomington, Indiana. We do not yet live in a city, state, or country where all lives actually matter. And that is the real problem we should be discussing tonight. It is not a matter of life and death for some, it is actually ignorant to ignore. And we shouldn't ignore it any longer. If you truly believe that all lives matter, then I invite you, the applicant, and your organization, Turning Point USA, and its members to resist and defeat pending discriminatory legislation in Indiana. You can't say all lives matter and then pick and choose whose lives actually matter. The applicant, let it go on to record and show that you and Turning Point USA believe this mural should exist in Bloomington if you believe that you are against hate, you are against white nationalism, you are against white dominance, and you believe the following: that Black lives, Jewish lives, Muslim lives, Asian lives, Latin lives, immigrant lives, lesbian lives, gay lives, bisexual lives, trans lives, queer lives, poor lives, houseless folks, and countless others' lives actually matter. The organization that I serve as president for and our members currently following bills in Indiana that are stripping the right to vote from its citizens, healthcare, reproductive justice, removing the right and choice to freely love, and that are killing our planet. Tonight, I urge you and your organization to stand up against Senate Bill 451, House Bill 1608, Senate Bill 1334, House Bill 1116, just to name a few. Let's face it, the proposed legislation in Indiana does not support all lives. In fact, pending legislation and those who support it scream and shout just the opposite. And saying or writing all lives matter without accountability is performative and dilutes the movement. The hypocrisy of this All Lives Matter statement is misleading. The city may or may not approve the request tonight, but what matters most is that we actually live and act in a way that truly supports every single life. Stand up and shout out to Bloomington and Indiana that united. If you refuse this invitation, then I believe that it will be very clear to everyone that all lives truly do not matter to you, to the applicant or to the Turning Point USA. It will be clear that All Lives Matter is just a slogan designed to further promote division and lack of accountability. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak tonight.
Thank you.
Up next is, last name is Masterson. I apologize, I don't want to say the first name because I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce it. So I will ask them to unmute and you can proceed with your comment.
How are you doing? This is Reece Masterson here. I am a city in Bloomington for about 10 years now. As an Irish immigrant into the city, I'd like to commend what the last speaker said. I think she raised some great points in the history of the United States of America and what it's built on. And my point is, it's not just slogans. We need to do more than just slogans. We need to actually, fix a society. Not just in Indiana, but as America as a whole. So I just want to commend and support what the last speaker said. So thanks very much for listening.
Thank you.
I don't know who this is. Just a moment. I apologize for that. Next up is Corey. Corey, I'm going to ask you to unmute and you may proceed with your comment.
Hello, my name is Corey Parton, and I am coming before you today to request that the board denies this request to paint All Lives Matter on the epicenter of our beautiful downtown Bloomington. I also want to thank Maquibe for her words as well. I moved to Bloomington willingly about 8 years ago, actually unrelated to the university, and I chose Bloomington because of its inclusive, diverse, and welcoming community. And I think that and as many of us think, what this mural will do is actually the antithesis of what I've come to know as Bloomington as a community. This is not representative of Bloomington's values. I can't even imagine what our visitors, whether they're just coming back to Bloomington or they're visiting for the first time or they're thinking about coming to IU, what they would think if they saw something like that in the heart of our city. Back in the Black Lives Matter rally, I witnessed someone on the hood of a car, and and she ended up rolling off of it. I was the first person to try and help and aid, and after all of the violence and the hate that has happened, to paint something that is meant to really silent the voices of anyone who's different and say that we're all the same, in my opinion, is ignorant. And I think the impact that this will make on our community would be dire. And so I urge you to deny this request. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Next up, we have Gary, who would like to speak. Gary, I'm going to ask you to unmute, and you may comment.
Thank you. My name is Gary Crow. I'm a resident of Bloomington, and I thank you for this opportunity. I speak in opposition to the petition and urge the board to reject it. As has been adequately and forcefully said, all lives matter is a euphemism. and what it has come to stand for is not something that this community is about. It assumes that the protections that are equally, that protections are equally real for all groups, and they are not. It assumes, it ignores the naming of the lives that have not mattered and are struggling to matter. And it assumes race blindness, which we know does not exist. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have one last comment from Reese Masterson. And Reese, I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Hello, I'm Evan Masterson, and I'm the cousin of Reese Masterson. I'm a citizen of Bloomington, and I would just like to say that the amount of anti-Irishism and racism that's been going on in the comments has disgusted me. Charles Duncan, Conor McGregor, and my cousin has just broke down crying because of this anti-Irishism, and I really do not appreciate it. So if I could have a sorry or an apology, I'd really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that the conclusion of our Zoom public comment?
That is, I have no other raised hands or chats.
Thank you. The board also received some written comments directly to the Public Works address, and we did receive those and read those prior to tonight's meeting. All right, no further public comment in the room. Is there maybe another?
I apologize. I have a raised hand. Nikolai, if you would please just chat. Nikolai is saying he disagrees with Reese's message, and he would like to speak.
The public comment is not for conversation between participants of the meeting, but rather for remarks related to the item that is on the agenda this evening. All right, if we have no further public comment on the item, are there any remaining questions from the board? All right, do we have a motion from the board?
Per Resolution 2023-11, I move that we deny the request from Turning Point USA at Indiana University to paint an All Lives Matter street mural.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I will do a roll call vote. Carone?
Deny.
Lloyd?
Deny.
Cox-Deckard? Deny. Motion passes. Next up is Resolution 2023-13, request from Constellation Stage and Screen for the 2023 Arts Fair on the Square, amendment number, Arts Fair on the Square, that's the end of the item.
April Rosenberger, Department of Public Works. This request comes from Kate Galvin from Constellation Stage and Screen. They would like to close both Kirkwood Avenue and 6th Street between College Avenue and Walnut Street, beginning at 6 a.m. for the setup until 8 p.m. on Saturday, June 24th, 2023. Arts Fair on the Square is returning to Bloomington. I think there was a pause with this, and they're also requesting 3 parking spaces on College Avenue and 3 spaces on Walnut adjacent to the courthouse for portable restrooms. All businesses have received a notice of this event, and a noise permit is also requested.
Thank you. Questions on this item?
I don't have a question, but I'll just note that I will recuse myself on this vote.
Thank you.
I have a raised hand on chat. This is from Jennifer, and she has a question. I will unmute her. Jennifer, if you would like to proceed with your question. Jennifer, it seems like there's some audio issues. Would you like to pose your question in the chat? I'm getting no response. So Jennifer, if you would like to pose your question at a later time, just raise your hand or leave a chat, please.
Are there any public comments here in the room? Seeing none. Any other?
There are no additional comments on Zoom.
All right, seeing none, is there a motion on this item?
Per Resolution 2023-13, I move that we approve the request from Constellation Stage and Screen for the 2023 Arts Fair on the Square.
And I second. I will call a roll call vote. Crone?
Approve.
Cox-Deckard, approve. Lloyd?
Abstain.
Abstain. All right, motion passes. Next up is amendment number 4 to LPA consulting contract with Lockmuller Group for the 17th Street Monroe to Grant Multimodal Improvements Project.
Good evening, Matt Smithers with the Engineering Department. The contract with Lockmuller is for the 17th Street Multimodal Project. The eastern portion of this project was completed last year, and the western portion is scheduled for construction this year. Lockmuller Group is currently under contract for preliminary engineering services. This addendum will increase construction phase services and reduce unused geotechnical services. The construction phase services include facilitating coordination between the two phases of the construction project and performing redesign for unexpected conditions. The total fee remains unchanged at $837,997. This contract is TIF funded and has prior funding approval. I can take any questions you may have.
Thanks. Questions from the board?
As I understood this yesterday, this is just basically a reallocation of funds from one portion of the project to another,
That's correct.
Any public comment on this item?
I have no comments regarding the agenda.
Thank you. All right, seeing none, is there a motion?
I move that we approve amendment number 4 to LPA consulting contract with Lockmuller Group for the 17th Street Monroe to Grant Multimodal Improvements Project.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Carone?
Aye.
Lloyd?
Aye.
Cox-Deckard, aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thanks. Next is request from F.A. Wilhelm for lane and sidewalk closures on South Strong Drive.
Paul Kerber with engineering. F.A. Wilhelm is continuing their work on Catalent's Project Pegasus. As part of this work, they will be installing a new water main along the east side of South Strong Drive, south of West Allen Street. And this work will require a lane closure. They will maintain two-way traffic, and then they will also be closing the sidewalk adjacent to the street. And then upon completion, they will be installing a new sidewalk, and the closures will be in place from April 3rd through April 28th of 2023. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions from the board?
No.
Any public comment on this item? Seeing none.
I see none for items on the agenda. Nikolai, if you would like to chat what your message is for an item on the agenda, I'd be happy to read that aloud.
All right, seeing no public comment on this item, do we have a motion?
I move that we approve the request for F.A. Wilhelm for lane and sidewalk closures on South Strong Drive.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Caron?
Aye.
Lloyd?
Aye.
Cox Deckard? Aye. Motion passes.
If I may, Nikolai, can you please tell me which agenda item you'd like to speak about? If you could please tell me which agenda item you'd like to speak about, I can proceed. No comment.
Thank you. Request from Duke Energy for lane closures for the Reliability Project Phase 2 tree clearing.
Paul Gerber with engineering. Duke Energy is continuing work on their Bloomington Reliability Project. Currently, Phase 3 is underway, and the phases are not in order, but they'll be starting on Phase 2, and the preliminary part of Phase 2 is to do the tree clearing as part of the project. There isn't much work involved with this. I spoke with Dawn with Duke, and there will be lane closures on West 17th Street between College and Walnut, and then also some along North Dunn Street south of 17th. And they plan to do this for 14 days between March 15th and April 14th of 2023. And they will communicate with us on exactly when they'll be doing those lane closures. And as part of this project, they've sent out several different notifications to adjacent properties and tenants along the path of the project, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions on this item? All right. Any public comment on this item?
No comment on Sam.
Seeing none, is there a motion?
I move that we approve the request from Duke Energy for lane closures for the Reliability Project Phase 2 tree clearing.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Caron?
Aye.
Lloyd?
Aye.
Cox Deckard? Aye. Motion passes. Next up is right-of-way use request from Core-Built Contracting for placement of dumpster at 210 East Kirkwood.
Paul Kerber with engineering. Core-Built Contracting is requesting to place a dumpster and metered parking. This is in front of the Graduate Hotel building at 210 East Kirkwood. They are remodeling a tenant space, and so the dumpster will be about mid-block in front of that space. And they are planning on March 15th through June 1st, 2023, and they have agreed to remove it for graduation weekend, May 5th through 7th. And additionally, they're requesting temporary use of the right-of-way for a barrier wall in front of that space while they complete the construction. This will separate pedestrians on the sidewalk from their construction. And this will maintain over a 6-foot clear sidewalk in front of the building with the wall in place. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions from the board on this item?
No.
Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, is there a motion?
I move that we approve the right-of-way use request from Core-Built Contracting for placement of dumpster at 210 East Kirkwood.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Caron?
Aye.
Lloyd?
Aye.
Cox Deckard? Aye. Motion passes. Thanks. Next up is request from AEG for lane and sidewalk closures.
Jason Kerr with engineering. AEG is requesting lane closure and sidewalk closures in multiple locations of their project work areas. There's 4 areas for this evening's permits. One is East 17th Street. The other is West 17th Street. The area including South Tudor Lane and area including South Xavier Court as well. These will be different lane restrictions and everything as the projects move forward in these areas. It was brought up yesterday in the work session yesterday about how far along they are. I haven't gotten details yet. I'm hoping to have that by next BPW.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Questions on this item? Any public comment on this item?
No comments on Zoom.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the request from AEG for lane and sidewalk closures.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Corone?
Aye.
Lloyd?
Aye.
Cox Deckard, aye. Motion passes. Thanks. Next up is addendum number 2 to preliminary engineering contract with Shrewsbury for BHRU infrastructure site and engineering phase 1 East project.
Matt Smathers with engineering again. The contract with Shrewsbury is for the Hopewell Phase 1 East project. This project had an unsuccessful initial bid that was significantly over the engineering estimate. To address the budget issues, the contract required design changes to value engineer the project for rebid. This addendum will compensate the design team for a portion of their value engineering work and preparation of the documents for the rebid. The addendum will increase the contract amount by $23,745. This project is TIF funded, and the resolution for this was approved by the Redevelopment Commission on March 6th.
Thank you. Questions on this item?
No.
Okay. Any public comment on this item?
No comment on Zoom.
All right, thank you. Seeing none, is there a motion?
I move that we approve addendum number 2 to the preliminary engineering contract with Shrewsbury for the BHRU infrastructure and site engineering phase 1 East project.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Corone?
Aye.
Lloyd?
Aye.
Cox Deckard, aye. Motion passes. Next up is award contract to Milestone Contractors LP for the Winslow Road, Walnut to Allendale resurfacing project.
Matt Smathers with engineering. This project includes the milling and resurfacing of asphalt pavement on Winslow Road from Walnut Street to Allendale Drive. Yesterday, bids were opened at the board meeting, and the city received 2 bids. The lowest bid being from Milestone Contractors for $474,712. Construction is anticipated to begin the spring of 2023. Single lane restrictions will be in place during construction utilizing flaggers, and the project is TIF funded and will require RDC approval.
Thank you. Questions on this item?
Nope.
Any public comment on this item?
No comment on Zoom.
Seeing none, is there a motion?
I move that we approve the awarding the contract to Milestone Contractors LP for the Winslow Road, Walnut to Allendale resurfacing project.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Corone?
Aye.
Lloyd?
Aye.
Cox Deckard, aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thanks. Next up is contract with PEI Maintenance for installation of diesel exhaust fluid tank.
April Rosenberger, Department of Public Works. In December of 2022, the Fleet Division received quotes for the installation of a diesel exhaust tank at the Henderson Street fuel site. PEI was the most responsive and responsible bidder. The contract is for a tank system that will interface with the Fuel Master fuel management system for accurate tracking of DEF usage. And this system is accessible 24 hours a day.
Thank you. Questions on this item?
No, I'll just note on the record that the price of the contract is listed at $57,089.
I'm sorry, Jennifer, what did you say?
This is the price quote on that's included with the contract.
Okay. Is it different than what's on the?
No, I just wanted, we didn't have the price in the staff report, and I just wanted to state it on the record.
Let me.
Yeah, it's on the contract and purchase justification form as $57,089. So as long as that's accurate, we'll just put that in the record.
And that's the amount listed in Article 4 of the contract as well.
Let me just confirm. So on the contract justification form, the contract amount is for $57,089, and that is the correct amount.
Thank you. Any public comment on this item?
No.
All right, seeing none, is there a motion?
I move that we approve the contract with PEI Maintenance for installation of diesel exhaust fluid or DEF tank.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Corone?
Aye.
Lloyd?
Aye.
Cox Deckard, aye. Motion passes. Next up is contract with CE Hughes Milling, DBA, the air marking company for pavement marking services.
April Rosenberger, Department of Public Works, and for the Street Division, Joe Van Devender. Bids were open yesterday at the Board of Public Works session. CE Hughes Milling, Inc., DBA, the air marking company, was determined to be the most responsible and responsive bidder at $179,440. The other bid that we received was from Indiana Sign and Barricade at $197,795. Staff is recommending the contract with air marking.
Thank you. Questions on this item?
No.
Okay. Any public comment on this item?
No public comment.
Seeing none, is there a motion?
I move that we approve the contract with CE Hughes Milling, DBA, the air marking company for pavement marking services.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Corone?
Aye.
Lloyd?
Aye.
Cox Deckard, aye. Motion passes. Next up is contract with Cargill, Inc. for de-icing salt.
April Rosenberger, Department of Public Works again, and for Joe Van Devender from the Street Division. Bids were received yesterday at the work session for de-icing salt for 2023. The most responsible and responsive bidder was Cargill, Inc. at $95.76 for 8,000 tons. We received I'm not sure. We received 2 letters to decline to bid from Morton Salt and Compass Mineral. So Cargill, Inc. is recommended for the de-icing salt.
Thank you. Questions on this item? Any public comment on this item?
No public comment.
Seeing none, is there a motion?
I move that we approve the contract with Cargill, Inc. for de-icing salt.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Corone?
Aye.
Lloyd?
Aye.
Cox Deckard, aye. Motion passes. Next up is change order number 1 to contract with Ancris LLC for upgrades and repairs to Fire Station number 4.
April Rosenberger, Department of Public Works again, for J.D. Boriff from Facilities. This change order, J.D. added some detail to the staff report showing the amounts for each item. This change order does not add to the cost of the contract. It's just the scope of work that Ancris is doing for Fire Station number 4.
Thank you. Questions on this item?
I'll just note that I need to recuse myself from this item.
Thank you. Any public comment on this item?
No public comment.
Seeing none, do we have a motion?
I move that we approve change order number 1 to contract with Chris LLC for upgrades and repairs to Fire Station 4.
And I second. We have a motion and a second. Lloyd?
Aye.
Cox Deckard, aye. And Crone, for the record?
Abstain.
All right, we have 2 ayes, the motion passes. Next up is staff reports and other business.
I have no staff reports.
Thank you.
I know that you are surprised by this.
Next up is approval of claims. Do we have any questions on the claims? All right. Any public comment on claims?
No public comment.
Seeing none. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve claims tonight in the amount of $1,843,262.08.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Crone?
Aye.
Lloyd?
Aye.
Cox Deckard, aye. Motion passes. And if there's no other business, then I will call for adjournment.